Well, good morning and welcome back to another little, what so far has been a futile search for red October. Brought myself down to another little woodland, and the light is coming and going. Now there is quite a lot of cloud about, but that's to our advantage because it's not really thick cloud, so it does let the light through every so often. And sort of it's quite an even light, which of course is what we want around this woodland. And I was reminded about this place. I was talking to a buddy who still lives back in Cambridge, and about a mile from where I used to live there was a little wood called the Beech Woods, and it took on some stunning autumn colours. And I showed him it on the map, and he went there at the weekend, and sure enough it looks fantastic. So it reminded me of this place, which is why I've decided to come down and have another little bit of a hunt around. Now right now the colour has completely faded from the scene, so that gives us a little bit of time just to have a bit of a look around. Now one of the challenges with this area of the wood that I'm in at the moment is the canopy starts quite high up on the tree itself, and so at eye level there's not a huge amount of colour. You kind of have to put your eye up, and of course the challenge that brings is bringing in the sky. So of course what would be to my advantage is if I could get on a higher playing field and looking down into the woodland. Trees quite close together, adding to the complexity. Trying not to sort of let too many of them overlap, and making sure you're choosing where and when the branches of trees do overlap. But generally, just again down here today just for a little bit of a bimble out, and we'll see what we can see. So let's have a wander on. So I brought myself out of the middle of the forest. The light just wasn't penetrating at all, and there's just, it was not really giving us anything. So I brought myself to the edge, and a bit like, I think it was the last Hunt for Red October video, where I kind of was down by the river's edge. Brought myself down by the river's edge again. Same river, but about 20 miles between those two locations. And we're kind of in a bit of a cliche here. You know, across the river, a little bit of reflection, a little bit of autumn colour. But what I quite like about it, yes, we have sort of a lovely little bit of flash of orangey red in amongst the green. But actually what I really like about the frame is on the left hand side, those two trunks, one slightly sort of barreled round to the left, one pretty much straight up, and then you've got just a little bit of an opening, almost as if you could sort of wander through there. And then behind the green sort of brambly bush there's just the sort of hint of another trunk, and then beyond it another trunk as well. So yes, my eye was drawn initially to the colour on the main tree, but as I stood here for sort of 5-10 minutes just observing the scene, I really wanted to make sure that I was giving enough prominence to those trees on the left hand side. Nothing too complicated, just a polarizer on, just doing a little bit to take some of the glare off those leaves and slightly saturate the image. Now we did get a little bit of light coming through, sort of direct sunlight. It was okay. I think I prefer it with just this more subdued sort of, it's flattish, but there's a little bit of light, and of course a little bit of light is just helping to illuminate the trunks of those trees. So now I also put a 16:9 crop on the film simulation as well, just to see whether that was going to give me anything, because the bottom of the frame, I can't have too much of the river in, because there's obviously a breeze in the middle of the river and it's just removing any sort of stillness from there. And of course, again, the old problem right behind those trees, it's quite bright blue sky, so avoiding having any sky in there. It might be, at the moment I've got it with a 3:2, just the native aspect ratio. That seems to work quite well, but there might also be a 16:9 in there as well. So just the other thing to say as well, one of the reasons why I love, and many photographers love, shooting with telephoto lenses in the woodland, is you really can pick out little sort of sections of a scene. You can see here right across the river, I'm zoomed in now. That also presents a little bit of a challenge to this 18-135 lens. I wouldn't say it's the sharpest at the maximum focal length, which is what I'm using. Now I have got the 1-400 in the bag. I don't have a polarizer connection for the 1-400, which is a bit of a pain, but I might just throw on the 1-400 while I'm here and just get the same scene, but maybe slightly sharper with that 1-400. So, but yeah, with the telephoto you really can just pick out little sections. And in fact, I would argue that if you were to walk around a woodland with a 70-200 or 2-400 or something, you could probably stand in a spot for at least half an hour and probably get a handful of images just with that telephoto. So certainly worthwhile investing in one or grabbing one if you are coming to the woodland, because it really does help you just isolate little pockets of colour. Now the other thing, well, shooting the 1-400, don't have a proper kind of mount for it, so it's a bit of a bodgy job, but it seems to be steady enough. Bottom left hand side of the frame, the little platform for the fisherman is picking up quite a lot of bright light. I should be able to darken that. Now, in an ideal world, that wouldn't be there. I'd be able to there's that bright light coming again. I'm just going to grab a shot just with that direct sunlight on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to underexpose bass stop as well. And what that might allow me to do is, rather than simply darken the image in post, maybe paint a little bit of a darker image in, but perhaps a bit more natural than simply just reducing the exposure. But the other thing that's a bit of a challenge is I'm using a 2-second timer. Now I could easily get over this by using a cable release, but I'm using a 2-second timer, and I would say that 1 out of every 3 or 4 shots that I'm taking, there's a couple of gulls cavorting out there, and by the time the shutter fires, the gulls are actually in the frame. In fact, one of them has just jumped into the water now and made ripples, but yeah. But yeah, love shooting with this 1-400, as I say, especially in woodlands. So, right. Well, I will throw up a couple of frames from this scene, and I guess then we'll mosey on. Hopefully you can hear me okay with that wind. I've actually come out of the forest a little bit. There was a real flash of colour that caught my eye as I was walking up the path. Don't think it works that well, but then as I was looking through the frame, I've got the 1:400 back on again. The tree is actually shedding a lot of leaves with that wind, and I was trying, I had to increase my ISO. I was trying to kind of capture just some of those leaves sort of falling down, a little bit of a sort of the shed, but the light, you really needed the light on it to sort of illuminate those leaves through beyond the leaves falling off the tree. There was quite a lot of shadow in the background. The weather seems to have closed in a little bit. We had a little bit of a rainbow moving through, and now it's not raining, but just a lot of sort of dampness in the air. And certainly, yeah, actually now I can see rain in the distance, and that light has gone. So one of those that conceptually you think that it's going to work, but the conditions just don't lend themselves to it. So I'm going to get back into the forest again, try to get a little bit of protection from the elements. So there's an absolutely fantastic characterful. So there's quite a nice tree here with plenty of character. And actually what's really drawn my eye to it is it's just got a couple of little golden sort of flecks of leaves left. Now there is some backlighting, there's no direct light actually on the tree itself, but there's some lovely backlighting going on as well. Now again I'm at that challenging point. I'm out at 100mm. I should really probably get the 1:400 out here, because I think there's a couple of images to be had with this tree, both zooming in a little bit more and just picking out little moments of it, especially when there is some lovely light on those back trees. Shows you how little I pay attention to kit. I actually do have a 77mm step-up ring, so I can use the polarizer on the 1:400. Now the one thing that gives a little bit of a challenge to this here, and I think I've spoken about this before, is there is a little bit of light leak coming in from the top right hand side. So I'm just putting my hand over the corner of the lens and then calculating the exposure from that and then making the image, because that will be very distracting, top right hand corner. But yeah, there's lots of character in this tree, so I think I'm going to get the 1:400 on and really start picking out some other details. Characterful. Now there's a couple of things that I'm paying attention to. One, shutter speed, as we've had all day, bit of a breeze blowing through. I'm shooting at f8, I could obviously increase the ISO and increase the shutter speed, and I might do that just to give me a slightly longer or a slightly shorter shutter speed. I'm not sure it matters too much. I think almost a little bit of movement in those leaves create maybe a little bit of additional interest in the frame. The other thing as well is that in the orientation that I'm in now, the portrait orientation, or indeed the landscape orientation, left hand side of the frame at various points, you can see the visible horizon. There's a steep bank of trees that goes up behind this that is obviously protecting me from the bright sky for most of the frame, but there is just one little section where that bright sky is coming through. Not ideal as always. probably need to think about a radial filter just to lower that exposure just a touch, because it does kind of draw the eye, which is a shame, because as I say, the rest of the frame behind the main subject is sort of masked. It's all woodland and different colours, which actually is quite nice, but again, you know, I'm always happy when I see the problem in the field and I recognise it. I don't like going home and looking at a frame and going, didn't spot that in the field. So right, well, I think I've shot enough of this particular frame, or this particular tree. I think we shall wander on. Beautiful, really nice. Well, I think that's this morning's little woodland bimble over. The light's kind of coming and going, and when it comes it's very bright, and when it goes it's very dark. Secondly, you can probably hear in the background, it's quite a popular, or obviously half term, whatever that is these days. And so the woodland is starting to get very busy with lots of families out enjoying it. But I think I'll come back here. The conditions weren't ideal today, but it'd be beautiful to get, lovely to get a little mist in here. And I know you do get sometimes mist and a little bit of atmosphere in here, but I guess we just have to take what we're given. But a very enjoyable morning out. I was about to sort of start playing about with the 10 to 24mm wide, sort of looking up into the canopy, because of course the bright sunshine coming through will actually give you some lovely translucent colours coming through the leaves, and I shot a couple of those before the light disappeared, and I'm not sure it really worked, but hey. But yeah, I think I'll come back here. But the hunt for Red October goes on. We're now, I think these next couple of weeks are going to be when, I think here in the north of Ireland anyway, we start to see the best of the colour. I'm sure there's lots of photographers out there who are readying themselves to go stand at Foley's Bridge down in Tullymore, which is a beautiful spot for autumnal images. But I think for this morning, I think I've been out now, 11 o'clock. Been out now good, bimbling around here for 3 hours, so I think I will take my leave, head back home and grab some lunch. As always guys, hope you've enjoyed following along, especially this little ongoing series, the hunt for some autumnal colour. And until next time, take care. Bye bye. Character.